While you track a 791 credit score and watch your high-yield savings account earn 4.6%, you believe you are winning the financial game, but the math suggests you are merely presiding over a controlled collapse of your purchasing power. Every dollar you store for safety is currently netting you just 60 basis points before tax, an illusion of growth that masks the reality of capital that is being slowly eaten by the very system you trust to protect it. You aren't building wealth. You are paying a premium for the comfort of a number that goes up while its actual value disappears. Picture yourself at 31. You have checked every box on the modern financial achievement list. Your salary sits at a comfortable $94,000, and you have managed to stack $41,000 into a high-yield savings account that is currently pumping out a 4.6% yield. You are the poster child for fiscal responsibility. You have zero credit card debt, you max out your 401 class every single year, and you even maintain a roommate to split the rent, even though your income suggests you could easily afford your own place. Your credit score is a pristine 791. You manage your life through a meticulous spreadsheet that tracks your net worth down to the very last cent. If you scroll through your feed right now, every single financial influencer would be holding you up as the gold standard of success. They would tell you that you are winning. But they are wrong. You are not winning, and the terrifying part is that you do not even realize it yet. Everything shifted during a standard Wednesday night dinner with an old college friend named Marcus. Marcus works as an analyst for a family office, a role that places him in a completely different financial stratosphere. You can tell just by the way he carries himself. He does not even glance at the prices on the menu before ordering. During the meal, you happen to mention your savings account. It is not meant to be a boast, just a casual remark about how satisfying it feels to watch that interest compound. You tell him you are actually proud of that 4.6% return. Marcus pauses, sets his glass down, and looks at you with a clinical sort of detachment. He does not try to be mean. He just asks you what inflation is running at. When you tell him it is around 4%, he quickly points out the math you have been ignoring. You are netting a pathetic 60 basis points before the government even takes its cut for taxes. You try to defend yourself by saying the money is safe. Marcus just looks at you and asks, safe from what? You realize in that moment that you have absolutely no answer for him. 6 weeks after that dinner, you find yourself sitting in a sterile conference room on the 34th floor of a skyscraper that does not even have a name on the exterior. This is the inner sanctum where Marcus's firm oversees the private wealth of just 11 families. Collectively, these people control more than $4 billion in assets. Do you want to know how much of that $4 billion is sitting in a savings account? Not a single meaningful dollar. A woman named Ranata Solis stands at the front of the room. She is the strategy manager for 3 of those families, and she has the warmth of a surgical blade. She clicks a remote and shows a slide with the number 47 on it. She explains that if you had tucked $100,000 into a standard savings account back in the year 2000, you would technically have $147,000 today. On paper, it looks like a win. Then she clicks the slide again to reveal the number 87. She tells the room that in terms of actual purchasing power, that $147,000 only buys what $87,000 could buy at the turn of the millennium. You have to look at your bank account like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You are pouring water in, but the structure itself is porous. You are not actually saving wealth. You are just storing it in a container that is designed to slowly dissolve it. It is a psychological sleight of hand. You see the digits in your app increasing, which gives you this warm sense of security and responsibility, but in reality, your capital is shrinking every time the sun sets. The average savings account in this country pays a measly 0.46%. Even the high-yield accounts that get marketed as financial revolutions only hit that 4 to 5% range when interest rates are peaked. When those rates inevitably drop, your bank will slash your returns instantly. But inflation does not play by those rules. It does not care about your bank's rate environment. Over 3 decades, inflation has averaged 2.9%, and in the last 5 years, that average has spiked to 5.3%. This isn't just a boring math problem. It is a quiet crisis. What do you think happens to your future when the gap between what the bank pays you and what the economy takes from you keeps widening? Have you ever actually looked at your safe money through that lens? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because we are about to tear down everything you thought you knew about safety. What are your thoughts on this? Is your high-yield account actually a trap? Every single second that your capital sits idle in a savings account, You are making a profound choice, even if it feels like you are doing nothing at all. Renata Solis makes it clear that this silence is actually a permanent, compounding error. She introduced me to a framework her firm calls deployment velocity, which is the sheer speed at which you move capital from a state of rest into a state of production. Think of your dollars like a workforce. You can either chain them to a desk in a dark basement where they do nothing but age, or you can send them out into the field to build, trade, and multiply. A savings account is essentially a high-security prison for your money. It is a vault. And while vaults are great for keeping things from being stolen, nobody has ever grown a harvest inside of a locked steel box. You have to decide, are you activating the DNA of your wealth, or are you suffocating it? The math behind this choice is devastatingly clear. Imagine two 30-year-olds, both starting with exactly $50,000. Person A plays it safe and parks that $50,000 in a high-yield savings account. After 30 years at an average 4.5% return, they end up with $180,000. Now look at Person B. They take that same $50,000 and put it into an S&P 500 index fund. Based on the 10.1% historical average return since 1957, that $50,000 balloons into $878,000 over those same 3 decades. Neither person added another dime. Neither person was a genius or a lucky market timer. The nearly $700,000 gap was created solely by the decision to deploy capital instead of merely storing it. When you ask about the danger of the stock market, you have to answer a different question first. What is the risk of watching your $50,000 shrink down to $87,000 in actual real-world value? Because that specific kind of failure has a name, and it is the price of playing it safe. You have to realize that cash is not a neutral asset. It is a ticking liability. It is a physical weight that gets heavier every year because it costs you 3 specific things. It costs you inflation, it costs you opportunity, and it costs you the lost decades of compounding that you can never get back. This is an invisible tax that the bank will never list on your monthly statement. Since 1810, when the first savings institution opened its doors, the business model has remained the same. You provide the raw material, and the bank earns the profit. They take your $100,000, pay you a measly 0.46%, and then turn around and lend that same money out at 7, 8, or 9%. They keep the massive spread in the middle while you feel secure. They are not your financial partners. You are just the inventory they use to make their own wealth. After that meeting, I stopped reading amateur blogs and started digging into the real numbers. I went through SEC filings, Federal Reserve data, and every Berkshire Hathaway shareholder letter dating back to 1977. In a letter from 1984, Warren Buffett described cash as a perishable commodity. He wrote that it must be deployed or it loses value by definition. I read that line 3 times. It hit me that the few dollars of interest hitting my $41,000 account every night was just static. It was noise. I had been confusing the activity of a number going up with the actual progress of wealth building. Now, Renata is bringing me back for a second session. This time, we are moving past the philosophy and getting into the actual mechanics. What are the specific, real-world tools that the 11 families with $4 billion use to keep their money moving? If you want to see those exact strategies, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell. What would you do with $50,000 today? Would you hide it in a vault or put it to work? The average American is drowning in a false sense of security, clutching a portfolio where 60% of their investable assets are pinned down in cash. Meanwhile, the ultra-wealthy families Renata Solis managers maintain a cash allocation of under 5%. That massive gap isn't just a difference in strategy. It is the literal border between people who master money and people who are paralyzed by it. Most people mistake their fear for responsibility, but from the outside looking in, that responsibility just looks like the slow, steady shrinkage of everything you have worked for. Renata doesn't sugarcoat the transition. She explains that the wealthy don't just use banks, they have effectively become the banks. They have moved to the other side of the desk where they are the ones lending, the ones owning, and the ones collecting. You have been sitting on the wrong side of that transaction your entire life, and if you want to change that, you need to understand the 4 primary engines they use to propel their wealth forward while you are still stuck in neutral. First, you have to look at total market index funds. We aren't talking about gambling on individual stocks. We're talking about capturing the compounding energy of the entire American economy for a measly 0.03% fee. There is not a single savings account on the face of the planet that has beaten that strategy over any 20-year window in recorded history. Not one. Go ahead, you can look it up for yourself. Next, we move to real estate, but not the headache of traditional landlording. The wealthy view property as a triple threat vehicle for rental income, appreciation, and surgical leverage. Imagine buying a $400,000 property with $80,000 down and $320,000 in debt. That $80,000 investment is now harvesting the appreciation of the full $400,000 asset. Your savings account is a blunt tool that has no idea what leverage even is. People say leverage is dangerous, but it is only lethal when used recklessly. In the right hands, it is a precision instrument. Then there are the Dividend Aristocrats, powerhouse companies like Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, and Coca-Cola that have hiked their dividends every year for at least 25 years straight. These assets don't just hand you a 3 to 4% cash yield, they offer annual growth plus price appreciation, providing a psychological fortress of income that arrives whether the market is screaming or silent. Finally, Ranetta pointed me toward private credit. While it might not be accessible at your current level yet, you need to see the full picture. These funds lend to mid-sized businesses at returns of 10 to 14% annually. The families at the top aren't waiting around for a bank to graciously offer them 4.6%. They are the ones acting as the bank. In this world, a high-yield savings account is nothing more than a temporary parking lot. You pull in, you catch your breath while you figure out your next move, and then you leave. If you stay there, you aren't being safe. You are just choosing a different kind of disaster. Ranetta shifted the entire conversation when she looked at me and asked what I was truly optimizing for. I told her I wanted security. She just stared back and asked, "Security from what?" I said I was afraid of losing what I have. But if you are watching your purchasing power vanish while you sleep, haven't you already lost? What do you think? Are you optimizing for growth or just hiding from the math? Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and ring that bell because we are about to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you a depositor or are you ready to become the bank? At 31 years old, you are standing at a fork in the road that represents a $920,000 difference in your future reality. If you take your $41,000 and commit to a total market index fund with a $500 monthly contribution, you are looking at $1.4 million by the time you hit 65. But if you cling to that savings account with the same $500 monthly addition, you will crawl toward the finish line with just $480,000. Let that sink in for a second. $1.4 million versus $480,000. Which one of those outcomes actually feels like losing everything you have? We have been conditioned to believe the savings account is a sanctuary of virtue because it feels passive and clean. You put the money in, you show discipline, and you watch the balance rise. But that warm, responsible glow is a total fabrication. It is a psychological sedative designed by the financial system to keep you contained. Real wealth is not built in a state of comfort. Comfort is just a high-end cage. The truth is that the wealthy aren't outworking you, and they aren't necessarily smarter or more disciplined. They are simply more willing to be uncomfortable. While you feel a sense of peace when your money is sitting still, a person who understands wealth feels a spike of anxiety. To them, idle cash is a decaying organism. That anxiety is not a personality flaw. It is a perfectly calibrated response to the reality of a world that eats static capital. You have been trained to view stagnant money as safety, and that training has been incredibly expensive for you. The bank is essentially selling you a feeling of progress so they can use your reality for their own gain. A savings account is not a vehicle for building wealth. It is a theater production where you play the role of someone building wealth while the actual value dissolves behind the scenes. Success in this game is not about the account you choose. It is about the verb you live by. Savers store, but builders deploy. Those two actions create entirely different identities and, eventually, they lead to entirely different rooms in this world. You might look out your window today at the crowds of people working hard and saving with that same quiet pride you had just 3 months ago, but now you see the truth. They are standing perfectly still while the ground beneath them is moving backward. The wealthy understand that a savings account is a parking lot, not a destination. You have finally been told the truth about the $1.4 million versus the $480,000. The market opens tomorrow morning, and your account is still sitting there, losing ground while you wait. The only question left is what you are going to do with what you now know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and ring the bell so you never fall back into the savings trap. Tell me in the comments, are you going to keep storing, or are you ready to start deploying?